Dr. Seward's diary continued. For a while, sheer anger mastered me. It was as if he had during her life struck Lucy on the face. I smote the table hard and rose up as I said to him, Dr. Van Helsing, are you mad? He raised his head and looked at me, and somehow the tenderness of his face calmed me at once. Would I were, he said. Madness were easy to bear compared with truth like this. Oh, my friend, why think you did I go so far round? Why take so long to tell so simple a thing? Was it because I hate you or have hated you all my life? Was it because I wished to give you pain? Was it that I wanted now, so late, revenge for that time when you saved my life and from a fearful death? Ah, no. Forgive me, said I. He went on. My friend, it was because I wished to be gentle in breaking to you. For I know if you have loved that so sweet lady, but even yet I do not expect you to believe. It is so hard to accept at once any abstract truth that we may doubt such to be possible when we have always believed the know of it. It is more hard still to accept so sad a concrete truth, and as of one as such, of one as Lucy. Tonight I go to prove it. Dare you come with me? This staggered me. A man does not like to prove such a truth. Byron accepted from this category jealousy. Quote, and prove the very truth he most abhorred. Unquote. He saw my hesitation and spoke. The logic is simple. No madman's logic is this time. Jumping from tussock to tussock in a misty bog. If it not be true, then proof will be relief. At worst, it will not harm. If it be true. Ah, there is the dread. Yet every dread should help my cause, for in it is some need of belief. Come, I'll tell you what I propose. First, that we go off and see that child in the hospital. Dr. Vincent of the North Hospital, where the papers say the child is a friend of mine. And I think of yours since you were in that class at Amsterdam. You will let two scientists see his case, and if you will not let two friends, we shall tell him nothing, but only that we wish to learn, and then, he took a key from his pocket and held it up. And then, we spend the night, you and I, in the churchyard where Lucy lies. This is the key that locked the tomb. I had it from the coffin man to give to Arthur. My heart sank within me, for I felt that it was something of some fearful ordeal before us. I could do nothing, however, so I plucked up what heart I could and said that we had better hasten, for as the afternoon was passing. We found the child awake. It had sleep and had taken some food, and altogether was going on well. Dr. Vincent took the bandage from its throat and showed us the punctures. There was no mistaking the similarities to those which had been on Lucy's throat. They were smaller and edges looked fresher, that was all. We asked Vincent to what attributed him, and he replied that it must have been a bite of some animal, perhaps a rat. But for his own part, he was inclined to think that it was one of the bats which are so numerous on the northern heights of London. One of the harmless ones, he said. There may be some wild specimen from the south or a more malignant species. Some sailor might have brought one home and managed to escape, or even from the zoological gardens, a young one may have got loose, or one bred there from a vampire. These things do occur, you know. Only 10 days ago, a wolf got out and was, I believe, traced up in this direction. For a week after, the children were playing nothing but Red Riding on the heath in every alley in the place until this Bloofer lady scare came along. And since then, it has been quite the gala time with them. Even this poor little mite, when he woke up today, asked the nurse if he might go away. When she asked him why he wanted to go, he said he wanted to play with the Bloofer lady. I hope, said Van Helsing, that when you are sending the child home, you will caution its parents to keep strict watch over it. These fancies to stray are most dangerous, and if the child were to remain out of another night, it would probably be fatal. But in any case, I suppose you will not let it away for some days? Certainly not. Not for a week at least, longer if the wound is not healed. Our visit to the hospital took more time than we had reckoned on, and the sun had dipped before we came out. When Van Helsing saw how dark it was, he said, "There is not hurry. It is more late than I thought. Come, let us seek out somewhere that we may eat, and then we shall go on our way." We dined at Jack Straw's castle along the little crowd with the bicyclists and others who were genially noisy. At about 10 o'clock, we started from the inn. It was then very dark, and the scattered lamps made the darkness greater when we were once outside their individual radius. The professor had evidently noted that the road we were to go, for it went on unhesitatingly, but as for me, I was in quite a mix-up as to locality. As we went further, we met fewer and fewer people, till at last we were going somewhat surprised when we met even the patrol of horse police going their usual suburban round. At last we reached the wall of the churchyard, which we climbed over with some little difficulty, for it was very dark. The professor and the whole place seemed so strange to us. We found the Westheimer tomb. The professor took the key, opened the creaky door, and standing back politely, but quite unconsciously, motioned me to precede him. There was a delicious irony in the offer and the courtliness of giving preference on a ghastly occasion. My companion followed me quickly and cautiously drew the door to, after carefully ascertaining where the lock was falling and not a spring one. In the latter case, we should have been in a bad plight. Then he fumbled in his bag, taking out a matchbox and a piece of candle, proceeded to make a light. The tomb in the daytime, when wreathed with fresh flowers, had looked grim and gruesome enough, but now, some days after, when the flowers hung lank and dead, their whites turned to rust and their greens to browns, and when the spider and the beetle had presumed their accustomed dominance, when the time-discolored stone and the dust-encrusted mortar and rusty, dank iron and tarnished brass and clouded silver plating gave the feeble glimmer of a candle, the effect was more miserable and sordid than could have been imagined. It conveyed irresistibly the idea that life, animal life, was not the only thing in which it could pass away. Van Helsing went about his work systematically, holding his candle so they could read the coffin plates, and so holding it that the sperm dropped in white patches, which congealed as they touched the metal, and made assurance of Lucy's coffin. Another search in his bag, and he took out a turn screw. "What are you going to do?" I asked. "To open the coffin. You shall yet be convinced." Straight away he began taking out the screws and finally lifted off the lid, showing the casing of lead beneath. The sight was almost too much for me. I seemed to be as much an affront to the dead as would have been to have stripped off her clothing in her sleep whilst living. I actually took hold of his hand to stop him. He only said, "You shall see." And again, fumbling in his bag, took out a tiny fret saw, striking the turn screw with the lead with a swift downward stab, which made me wince. He made a small hole, which was, however, big enough to admit the point of the saw. I had expected a rush of gas from the weak old corpse. We doctors, who have had to study our dangers, have become accustomed to such things, and I drew back towards the door, but as the professor never stopped for a moment. He sawed down a couple of feet alongside one of the lead coffin, and then across and down to the other side. And taking the edge of the loose flange, he bent it backwards towards the foot of the coffin, and holding up the candle in the aperture, motioned to me to look. I drew near and looked. The coffin was empty. It was certainly a surprise to me and gave me an unconsiderable shock, but Van Helsing was unmoved. He was now more sure than ever of his ground and was so emboldened to proceed in his task. "Are you satisfied now, friend John?" he asked. I felt all the dogged argumentativeness of my nature awake within me as I answered him. "I am satisfied that Lucy's body is not in that coffin, but that only proves one thing." "And what is that, friend John?" "That it is not there." "That is good logic," he said, "so far as it goes, but how can you account for it not being there?" "Perhaps a body snatcher," I suggested. "Some of the undertaker's people may have stolen it." I felt that I was speaking folly, and yet it was the only real cause which I could suggest. The professor sighed. Well. We must have more proof. Come with me." He put the coffin lid on again, gathered up all his things and placed them in the bag, and blew out the light and placed the candle also in the bag. We opened the door and went out. Behind us, he closed the door and locked it. He handed me the key, saying, "Will you keep it?" "You had better be assured." I laughed, but it was not a very cheerful laugh, I'm bound to say. As I motioned to him to keep it. "A key is nothing," I said. "There are many duplicates. And anyhow, it is not difficult to pick a lock of this kind." He said nothing but put the key in his pocket. Then he told me to watch at one side of the churchyard whilst he would watch at the other. I took up my place behind a yew tree and saw his dark figure move until the intervening headstones in the tree hid it just from my side. It was a lonely vigil. Just as after I'd taken my place, I'd heard a distant clock strike 12, and in time came 1 or 2. I was chilled and unnerved and angry with the professor for taking me on such an errand when with myself for coming. I was too cold and too sleepy to be keenly observant, and not sleepy enough to betray my trust, and so altogether I had a merely miserable time. Suddenly, as I turned around, I thought I saw something like a white streak moving between 2 dark yew trees at the side of the churchyard farthest from the tomb. At the same time, a dark mass moved from the professor's side of the ground, and hurriedly it went towards it. Then it too moved, but I had to go round headstones and railed off tombs, and I stumbled over graves. The sky was overcast, and somewhat far off an early cock crew. A little ways off, beyond a line of scattered juniper trees, which marked the pathway to the church, a white dim figure flitted in the direction of the tomb. The tomb itself was hidden by trees, and I could not see where the figure had disappeared. I heard the rustle of actual movement where I had first seen the white figure, and coming over, found the professor holding in his arms a tiny child. When he saw me, he held it out to me and said, "Are you satisfied now?" "No," I said in a way I felt was aggressive. "Do you not see the child?" "Yes, it is a child, but who brought it here? And is it wounded?" "We shall see," said the professor. With one impulse, we took our way out of the churchyard, and he was carrying the sleeping child. When we got some little distance away, we went into a clump of trees and struck a match, and I looked at the child's throat. It was without a scratch or scar of any kind. "Was I right?" I asked triumphantly. "We were just in time," said the professor thankfully. We had now to decide what we were to do with the child, and so we consulted about it. If we were to take it to the police station, we should give it some account of the movements during the night. At least we should have to make some statement as to how we had come to find the child. So finally, we decided that we should take it to the Heath, and when we heard a policeman coming, we'd leave it there where he could not fail to find it. We would then seek our way home as quickly as we could. All fell out well. At the edge of Hampstead Heath, we heard a policeman's heavy stamp, and laying the child on the pathway, we waited and watched until he saw it, and as he flashed his lantern to and fro. We heard his exclamation of astonishment, and then we went silently away. By good chance, we got a cab near the Spaniards and drove to town. I cannot sleep, so I make this entry. But I must try to get a few hours' sleep, as Van Helsing is to call for me at noon. He insists that I go with him on another expedition. 27 September. It was 2 o'clock before we found a suitable opportunity for our attempt. The funeral held at noon was all completed, and the last stragglers and the mourners had taken away themselves lazily away when, looking carefully from behind a clump of alder trees, we saw the sexton lock the gate after him. We knew that if we were safe till morning, did we desire it, but the professor told me we should not want more than an hour at most. Again, I felt that horrible sense of reality of things, in which any effort of imagination seems out of place, and I realized distantly the perils of the law which we were incurring in our unhallowed work. Besides, I felt it was also useless. Outrageous it was to open a leaden coffin, to see a woman dead nearly a week was really dead. It now seemed the height of folly to open the tomb again, when we knew from the evidence of our own eyesight that the coffin was empty. I shrugged my shoulders, however, and rested silent, for Van Helsing had a way of going on his own road, no matter who remonstrated. He took the key, opened the vault, and again courteously motioned me to proceed. The place was not so gruesome as last night, but oh, how unutterably mean-looking when the sunshine streamed in. Van Helsing walked over to Lucy's coffin, and I followed. He bent over and again forced me back to the leaden flange, and a shock of surprise and dismay shot through me. There lay Lucy, seemingly just as we left her the night before her funeral. She was, if possible, more radiantly beautiful than ever, and I could not believe that she was dead. The lips were red, nay, redder than before, and on the cheeks was a delicate bloom. "Is this a juggle?" I said to him. "Are you convinced now?" said the professor in response, and as he spoke, he put over his hand in a way that made me shudder, pulled back the dead lips, and showed the white teeth. "See," he went on, "they are even sharper than before. With this and this." He touched one, then the canine teeth, and that below it. "Little children can be bitten. Are you a belief friend, John?" "Are you a belief now, friend John?" Once more argumentative hostility woke within me. I could not accept that such an overwhelming idea as he suggested. So with an attempt to argue, of which I had even in the moment ashamed, I said, "She may have been placed here since last night." "Indeed, that is so. And by whom?" "I do not know. Someone has done it. And yet she has been dead 1 week. Most people in that time would not look so." I had no answer for this, so I was silent. Van Helsing did not seem to notice my silence. At any rate, he showed neither chagrin nor triumph. He was looking intently at the face of the dead woman, raising the eyelids and looking at the eyes, and once more opening the lips and examining the teeth. And he turned to me and said, "Here. There is one thing which is different from all recorded. Here is some dual life that it is not as the common. She was bitten by the vampire when she was a trance, sleepwalking. Oh, you don't know that, friend John, but you shall know it later. But in trance could he best come to take more blood. In trance she dies, and in trance she is undead too, so that in that she differ from all others. Usually when the undead sleep at home. As he spoke, he made a comprehensive sweep of his arm and designated what to a vampire was home. Their face show what they are. With this so sweet that was, when she was not undead, she go back to the nothings of the common dead. There is no malign here, so see, and so it is make hard that I must kill her in her sleep. This turned my blood cold, and it began to dawn upon me that I wasn't accepting Van Helsing's theories. But if she were really dead, what was there of terror in the idea of killing her? He looked up at me and evidently saw the change in my face, where he said almost joyously, "Ah, you believe now." I answered, "Do not press me too hard all at once. I am willing to accept." "How will you do this bloody work?" "I shall cut off her head and fill her mouth with garlic, and I shall drive a stake through her body." It made me shudder to think of so mutilating the body of the woman whom I loved. And yet the feeling was not so strong as I had expected. I was in fact beginning to shudder more at the presence of this being, this undead, as Van Helsing called it, and to loathe it. Is it possible that love is all subjective or all objective? I waited a considerable time for Van Helsing to begin, but he stood as if wrapped in thought. Presently he closed the catch of his bag with a snap and said, "I have been thinking, and have made up my mind as to what is best. If I did simply follow my inclining, I would do now, at this moment, what it is to be done. But there are other things to follow, and there are 1,000 times more difficult in them we do not know. This is simple. She hath yet no life taken, though that is of time, and to act now would be to take danger from her forever. But then we may have to want Arthur. And how shall we tell him of this? If you, who saw the wound in Lucy's throat, saw the wound so similar on the child's throat at the hospital, if you, who saw the coffin empty last night, and full today with a woman who have not changed only to be more rose and more beautiful in a whole week after she died, if you know of this, and know of the white figure last night that brought the child to the churchyard, and yet of your own senses you did not believe, how then can I expect Arthur, who know nothing of these things, to believe?" He doubted me when I took him from her kiss when she was dying. I know he has forgiven me because in some mistaken idea I have done things that prevent him saying goodbye as he ought. And he may think that in some mistaken idea this woman was buried alive, and that in most mistake of all we have killed her. He will then argue back that it is we mistaken ones that have killed her by our ideas, and so he will be much unhappy always. Yet he never can be sure, and that is the worst of all. And he will sometimes think that she he loved was buried alive, and that will paint his dreams with horrors of what she must have suffered. And again he will think that we may be right, and that his so beloved was, after all, an undead. No. I've told him once, and since then I've learned much. Now, since I know it all is true, 100,000 times more do I know that he must pass through the bitter waters to reach the sweet. He, poor fellow, must have had 1 hour that he will make the very face of heaven grow black to him. Then we can act for good all round and send him peace. My mind is made up. Let us go. You return home for tonight to your asylum and see that all be well. As for me, I shall spend the night here in the great churchyard my own way. Tomorrow night you will come to me to the Berkeley Hotel at 10 of the clock. I shall send for Arthur to come to, and also that so fine young man of America that we gave his blood. Later we shall all have work to do. I come with you so far as to Piccadilly and there dine, for I must back here before the sunset. So we locked the tomb and came away, and we got over the wall of the churchyard, which was not much of a task, and drove back to Piccadilly. Note by Van Helsing in its portmanteau. Berkeley Hotel, directed to John Seward, M.D., not delivered. 27 September. Friend John, I write this in case anything should happen. I go along to watch in that churchyard. It pleases me that the undead, Miss Lucy, should not leave tonight, that on the morrow night she shall be more eager. Therefore I shall fix some things that she like not, garlic and crucifix, and so seal up the door of the tomb. She is young as undead, and will heed. Moreover, there are only to prevent her coming out. They may not prevail on her when they get in, for then the undead is desperate, and must find the line of least resistance, whatever so it may be. I shall be at hand all the night from sunset till sunrise, and if there be aught there may be learned, I shall learn it. From Miss Lucy or from her, I have no fear, but that other to whom it is there she is undead, he have not the power to seek her tomb and find shelter. He is cunning, as I know from Mr. Jonathan, and all from the way all along that he have fooled us when he played with us for Miss Lucy's life, and we lost. And in many ways the undead are strong. He have always the strength in his hand of 20 men, and even we 4 who gave our strength to Miss Lucy, it is also to him. Besides, he can summon his wolf, and I know not what. So if it be that he came thither on this night, he shall find me, but none other shall until it be too late. But it may be that he will not attempt the place. There is no reason why he should. His hunting ground is more full of game than the churchyard where the undead woman sleeps, and the one old man watch. Therefore I write in this case, take the papers that are with this, the diaries of Harker and the rest, and read them, and find this great undead, and cut off his head, and burn his heart, or drive a stake through it, so that the world may rest from him. If it be so, farewell. Van Helsing. Dr. Seward's diary, 28 September. It is wonderful what a good night's sleep will do for one. Yesterday I was almost willing to accept Van Helsing's monstrous ideas, but now they seem to start out lured before me by his rageous own common sense. I have no doubt that he believes it all. I wonder if his mind can have become in any way unhinged. Surely there must be some rational explanation of all these mysterious things. Is it possible that the professor can have done it himself? He is so abnormally clever that if he went off in his head, he will carry out his intent with regard to some fixed idea in a wonderful way. I am loath to think it, and indeed it would be almost as great a marvel as the other to find that Van Helsing was mad. But anyhow, I shall watch him carefully. I may get light on the mystery. 29 September morning. Last night, as a little bit before 10 o'clock, Arthur and Quincy came into Van Helsing's room. He told us all what he wanted us to do, but especially addressing himself to Arthur, and as if our wills were centered in his. He began by saying that he hoped that we would all come with him for, he said, there is grave duty to be done there. You were doubtless surprised by my letter. This query was directly addressed to Lord Godalming. I was, and rather upset me for a bit. There's been much trouble around my house of late that I could do without any more. I've been curious, too, as to what you mean. Quincy and I talked it over, but all the more we talked, the more puzzled we got. So, now I can say it for myself that I'm about up a tree to any meaning about anything. Me too, said Quincy Morris laconically. Oh, said the professor. Then you are near the beginning, both of you. That friend John here has gone a long way to go back before he can even get so far as to begin. It was evident that he recognized returning to my old doubting frame of mind without my saying a word. Then turning to the other two, he said with intense gravity, I want your permission to do what I think is good this night. It is, I know, much to ask, and when you know what is good, I propose to do what you will know, and only then how much. Therefore may I ask that you promise me in the dark, so that afterwards, though you may be angry with me for a time, I must not disguise from myself the possibility that such may be. You shall not blame yourselves for anything. That's frank anyhow, broke in Quincy. I'll answer for the professor. I don't quite see his drift, but I swear he's honest, and that's good enough for me. I thank you, sir, said Van Helsing proudly. I've done myself this honor of counting you as one trusting friend. And such endorsements is dear to me. He held out a hand, which Quincy took. Then Arthur spoke out. Dr. Van Helsing, I don't quite like to buy a pig in a poke, as they say in Scotland. And if it be anything in which my honor as a gentleman or my faith as a Christian isn't concerned, I cannot make such a promise. If you can assure me that what you do intend does not violate either of these two, then I give my consent at once, though for the life of me I cannot understand what you are driving at. I accept your limitation, said Van Helsing, and all I ask of you is that you feel necessary to condemn any act of mine. You will first consider it well and be satisfied that it does not violate your reservations. Agreed, said Arthur. That is only fair. And now that the poor parlor are over, may I ask what it is we are to do? I want you to come with me, and to come in secret to the churchyard at Kingstead. Arthur's face fell as he said it in a sort of amazed way. Where poor Lucy is buried? The professor bowed. Arthur went on. And when there? To enter the tomb. Arthur stood up. Professor, are you in earnest, or is it some monstrous joke? Pardon me, I see that you are in earnest. He sat down again, but I could see that he sat firmly and proudly as one who was on his dignity. There was silence until he asked again, and when in the tomb? To open the coffin. This is too much, he said, angrily rising again, willing to be patient in all things that are reasonable, but in this, desecration of the grave of one who... He fairly choked with indignation. The professor looked pityingly at him. If I could spare you one pang, my poor friend, he said, God knows I would, but this night our feet may tread in thorny paths, or later, or forever. The feet you love must walk in the paths of flame. Arthur looked with set white face and said, Take care, sir, take care. Would it not be well to hear what I have to say? Said Van Helsing. Then you will at least know the limit of my purpose. Shall I go on? That's fair enough, broke in Morris. After a pause, Van Helsing went on, evidently with an effort. Miss Lucy is dead, is it not so? Yes. Then there can be no wrong to her, but if she be not dead... Arthur jumped to his feet. Good God! What do you mean? Has there been some mistake? Has she been buried alive? He groaned in anguish that not even hope could soften. I did not say that she was alive, my child. I did not think it. I go no further than to say she might be undead. Undead? Not alive? What do you mean? Is this all a nightmare, or what is it? There are mysteries which men can only guess at, which age by age they may solve only in part. Believe me, we are now on the verge of one, but I have not done. May I cut off the head of dear dead Miss Lucy? Heavens and earth, no! Cried Arthur in a storm of passion. Not for the wide world will I consent to any mutilation of her dead body. Dr. Van Helsing, you try me too far. What I have done to you is that... What have I done to you that you should torture me so? What did that poor sweet girl to you that you should want to cast such dishonor on her grave? Are you mad that you speak of such things, or am I mad that I listen to them? Don't dare think more of such desecration. I shall not give my consent to anything you do. I have a duty in protecting her grave from outrage, and by God, I shall do it. Van Helsing rose up where he had been all the time seated and said gravely and sternly, My Lord Golding, I too have a duty to do, and a duty to others, a duty to you, a duty to the dead, and by God, I shall do it. And I ask you now that it is you come with me, And you look and listen, and if later, if I make the same request, you do not be more eager for its fulfillment even than I am, I shall do my duty, whatever it may seem to me. And then to follow your lordship's wishes, I shall hold myself at your disposal to render an account to you when and where you will. His voice broke a little, and as he went on with a voice full of pity, "But I beseech you, do not go forth in anger with me. In a long life of acts which were often not pleasant to do, and which sometimes did wring my heart, I have never had so heavy a task as now. Believe me, that if the time comes for you to change your mind towards me, one look from you and you will wipe away all this sad hour. This so sad hour. For why should I give myself to so much labor and so much sorrow? I have come here of my own land to do what I can of good. At the first, to please my friend John, and then to help a sweet young lady whom I come to love. For her, I am ashamed to say so much, but I say it in kindness. I gave you what I gave. The blood of my veins. I gave it, I who was not like you her lover, but only her physician and her friend. I gave her my nights and days, before death, after death, and if my death can do her even good now, when she is dead, the undead, she shall have it freely." He said this with a very grave, sweet pride, and Arthur was much affected by it. He took the old man's hand and said in a broken voice, "Oh, it is hard to think of it, and I cannot understand, but at least I shall go with you and wait."